Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. Wow. I don't know how to say my own name. Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. That over there is Charlotte Wilder. And Charlotte, we're going to do something different today. We sat down with Rex Chapman. He's currently in the Suns front office, but you may know him from 12 years of playing in the NBA, or maybe from just being a very great follow on Twitter.
He was also a basketball star in Kentucky. He has a book out. I mean, it's called It's Hard for Me to Live with Me. I tore through this. I could not put this down. It's a fascinating story. Rex wrote it with Seth Davis. They tell the story really beautifully, and I think it was a pretty special interview.
Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation with him about mental health, about addiction, about life, really. And so you don't want to miss any of this. This is the entire interview uncut.
You all know him as a college basketball phenomenon, NBA star, social media star, which I hear some of the kids know you better from Twitter than your playing days. Rex Chapman is here with us. So excited to talk to you about your new memoir. It's Hard for Me to Live with Me, available now wherever you get your books and audiobooks. That title is something that I identify with. So thank you for sharing your story and being here.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. And you know I love you, man.
He's my
Forever.
guy. He's
Amin?
my guy.
Yeah.
You gassing up Amin already?
Yeah.
Rex, what has it been like? This is obviously a very personal book. You talk about your struggles with addiction, some low points coming back from that, anxiety, mental health, and just also the wild stories you have about playing basketball at such a high level for so long. What has it been like talking about all of that so much?
It's, terrifying. I should say first, I feel very conflicted about being celebrated for failing at life so miserably. And when I say that, I know there's redemption and all of that. I say this because I just moved back to Phoenix, where my ex-wife is, my kids are, our kids are, and I've dropped this emotional bomb back into their life. And in my parents, my sister, who saved my life, came to my aid when we hadn't been talking and really helped me dig out. This is all bringing up a lot of stuff for them, and especially my ex-wife. She raised our kids. I played with them, and they're all just terrific. They're all between 31 and 22 years old, and they're all very well adjusted, only thanks to her. So it's just tough talking about it, but I wanted to start with that at least.
What was the hardest thing to put into writing?
Oh, man. I guess the hardest thing to put in writing was my years at Kentucky, at UK, and then probably just the ensuing years and how I felt, how I lived my life, and really going into all of the different areas of my life that, I just had failed at because I didn't have any coping skills.
I mean, the way you open the book is really powerful. You talk about getting arrested for stealing from an Apple store, going through the depths of your addiction, and then I thought it was really powerful how then you just snapped right back to being a kid. Because you describe immediately a feeling of anxiety, which is realizing that people you love are going to die someday, which is exactly, I struggle with anxiety.
Right.
When I was a kid, that's how it hit me. And I was like, oh, whoa, I don't know that I've ever seen it written out. So
wow.
In a way that I identified with.
That's awesome.
But you talk about some beautiful things about your childhood, about your relationship with your dad. How has that evolved over the years?
It's amazing. I don't, you never know how people will interpret things. I was very fearful for, my dad when he read the book.
Yeah.
And my mom, still living, both of them. Maybe of everyone, he was the one that was like, I'm proud of you.
Oh.
Wow.
Didn't have a thing to say about it. And this is a guy I said, he from the Bobby Knight school, and I take Zoloft now. I was telling Charlotte earlier, my dad does as well, and for the last 10 years, he's a different person. Like, just a lot of mental illness, I think, in my family, a lot of addiction. As a kid, and as an adult, I've always had this sort of impending doom.
Yeah.
Kind of a dark kind of outlook on things, and I have to kind of trick myself into not thinking and
Listen,
feeling
Rex,
that way.
I'm a Wellbutrin girl
Yeah,
myself,
yeah.
so preaching to the choir on that one.
How does that interact or relate to the drive to become a great basketball player? You were Mr. Basketball for the state of Kentucky, or McDonald's All-American. You went to Kentucky, which obviously was a huge deal, and then you get to the NBA and you have a long career there. How does those kind of mental health issues, how do they interplay with the drive to be great?
For me, I think it was probably an escape. I played basketball all the time. That's all I ever thought about. You know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, say, I'd go to sleep, wake up at midnight, just in a panic, realizing that on the West Coast, Gerald Madkins and guys out there that are playing at the park, it's 9 o'clock out there. They're probably just wrapping up. I'd get up, I'd go for a run.
At midnight?
Yeah, or push-ups or whatever, just to be like, somebody's outworking me right now. And so at the time, you know, I'm sure everyone's like, oh, he's a good kid. And I was a good kid. I mean, I didn't get in trouble like a lot of kids do. But yeah, I'm sure everyone was like, oh, he's obsessed with it. He loves it, and he's good at it, and it's good for him. And you know, he's not doing other things. And that was all true, but it was all I did. I was so one-dimensional as a person, and my whole identity was wrapped up in, I said was wrapped up in basketball, right?
Well, and also
was,
No,
and
it was, man.
yeah, okay.
But
all
there's
right.
the physical movement part of it too, like that, you know, exercise
Yes.
where you're moving
and all
around.
of that.
Right.
But it is wild to think about. It's like, on the one hand, yes, that is a positive, right? Like that you're doing something good with your life.
Right.
But it's almost like a deodorant. There's an actual real issue happening with
Yeah.
him here.
Yeah.
But because it's covered by him addressing it with an escape that is a positive escape as opposed to getting in
Right.
trouble,
Right.
everyone's like, oh, no, he's fine. He's
right,
fine.
right.
Something you talk about in your book, Rex, a lot is race relations in Kentucky at the time when you were growing up, and you know the horrible things people would say. Something that struck me that feels very relevant today is when Mitch McConnell, who was then a young senator, shows up with an aide who has a Confederate flag on his briefcase.
Yeah.
That blew. I mean, it didn't blow my mind. Unfortunately, it was very unsurprising. But you know that obvious display of it that was everywhere.
Yeah, it was everywhere. You know, hell, we had kids in school that wore shirts with that flag on it. And, you know, I think I said in the book, it's one thing for your neighbor to have that flag flying. It's a different thing for somebody so closely associated with the United States senator, a freshman senator, just elected my junior year in high school. They made us go out on the football field to, we flew in a helicopter 20 minutes from Frankfort, Kentucky to see our students. And it was a mandatory thing. And we all had to go out on the football field. And his aide gets off the thing with a briefcase. And I walked back inside through the smoking area that we had in school, school, and into the school. And I passed some teachers and said, man, that guy. And they were like, oh, you go to the office. I went to the office. And they said, all right, 3 days of detention. Had to come in early for the next 3 days. I loved detention anyway. Didn't have to do anything in there.
Your addiction to opioids starts when you have your appendix removed, right? Who was the first person to know that Rex has a problem?
Oh, man. You know, I think it was probably Aaron Nelson.
Wow.
The Suns' former trainer, went and was the trainer in New Orleans, still in New Orleans now as kind of an advisor on the health side. Aaron and I were really close. He was an assistant trainer to Joe Prosky at the time, and it was right at the end of my career. I'd been getting Vicodin for my hand. I'd had a fused hand that season, and we were in the playoffs, and I'm probably taking the medicine to, for a legitimate reason at that point. But also, there was something about it that I liked, and I would take more of it, and Aaron could see it in my eyes. And that if somebody comes in right now, I can usually spot like they're
Really?
blinking slow. It's a little something going on. So, but Aaron was the guy that just said, "Hey, man," he said to me exactly, "I'm going to see you in about 20 years, and you're just going to be drooling."
So Nelly is the straight shooter
He's
does
a
not
straight-
begin
no,
to
no.
describe this person.
Right.
Okay.
He's
Yes.
blunt.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
blunt.
Honest. And I kind of brushed it off, and he was the assistant trainer, and he's my buddy, and we're all, we go out every night and do all that stuff. So, yeah. But Aaron, and then Danny Ainge. Yeah, Danny afterwards.
How did you receive that when Nelly said that to you? Like in that moment, did you just laugh it off in it, or
I think I laughed it off because my recollection is we were all out kind of drinking, and so probably in that moment I was probably like, "Look at you, who are you?" What?
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Rex, it's fascinating to me that you say that you have a doom and gloom outlook. But I think a lot of people today know you as someone who's very positive and progressive and uplifting on social media. How did you start doing that?
I don't know about positive. I think everybody's kind of known I've been progressive for a lot
Right.
of people have. Some people might not have. I was just kind of born that way, I guess. I try to fool myself into the positivity stuff. I do have a lot of doom and gloom, but I laugh a lot. I have always done so, and I think that really is to keep from crying. When I'm by myself or alone with family and friends, a lot of times I just sit and say nothing, and so when I go out in public, and this started happening at such a young age that like I felt like I almost had to perform, and so I still do that. There are times when I go to the Suns game that I just do not feel like talking to anyone. I go in now, I snap back into, man, you used to be toxic. Nobody wanted to fucking talk to you. You better, how about some humility here?
Yeah.
But still, I got to go do it. And, I used to do those things. I put a pill in my pocket. Whatever it was to get through it. Now I'm able to sit with my own emotions better, concentrate. You see me over there. My mind is kind of everywhere because people are coming up all the time. And I want to give everyone, myself, but I'm so distracted a lot, just with my ADD and all of that. So I'm worried about disappointing people I interact with. And therefore, I think I probably perform, a little bit when I'm out in public.
I think everybody performs.
Okay. That makes me feel.
The schmooze lane.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing for me. The chit chat is not but it's good for me. I think.
Yeah, no, I think it also allows, for the most part, almost to check the box of interaction.
Yeah.
So someone says, "Oh, I saw Rex. You look good,"
Yeah.
or whatever, and you didn't have to have like a deep
Right.
conversation with any of these people, really.
Right.
Half the time we're talking about like gossip from around the league, and the other half the time we're just shooting the shit about whatever.
Yeah.
So it's never kind of like a heart-to-heart conversation.
Right.
So in that way,
Right.
you don't have to have that. To me, it would be the emotional toll, given what you've gone through
Right.
and how public it was, to have that kind of conversation over and over and over. It's like I wrote a book about it so you guys could read it,
Yeah.
not so that you guys could come and, keep digging,
Totally. There's a time and place for when you talk about what.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's sort of not superficial, because it's not superficial, but the
No,
sort of
I get it.
the performance that comes with being anybody public and then going in person and you're like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to be like, well, that person's an asshole.
Right. Right. No, that's exactly right. That's always been my fear from the time I started signing autographs and stuff. Was I remember. I know how I looked at Daryl Griffith when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
I know how I look at him now. Like it's
Dr. Devonson,
he is. He's my idol.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm the last kid and Daryl had to say, nope, sorry, gotta go, I'd have been crushed.
Right.
Yeah.
And thinking about, and that for me, like that almost makes me cry.
Yeah.
Because I know that over time I've shut that off anymore. Like I don't even think about that anymore, which is sad too, because there are people that I'll be like, no, gotta go. I don't even think about it anymore. But I'm just saying those are things maybe everyone doesn't think about, but I did, and I do.
I think there's a balance though, because there's a balance between giving what you can give and also staying, sane and
looking out for yourself.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. How do you, on a daily basis, as someone who struggles with addiction, what was it that when you got clean, you were finally able to sustain that? What does that take every day?
Therapy.
Yeah.
And marijuana.
Yeah.
I was without anything at all for over a year afterwards and felt fine. Once I was given ulcer medication in rehab, everything that I'd had before that I thought was craving or withdrawal was ulcers.
Wow.
Opioids
Really?
cause ulcers
Wow.
and mask the pain.
Oh, wow.
No
and
way.
so no doctor ever, this is common, I didn't know that either. And so the whole time I'd get off this medicine, I'd have this dull, achy pain,
Was that with the
I thought,
Suboxone?
yeah, and then the Suboxone takes
Yeah.
that away because it's not an opioid, but it's an opioid derivative that's supposed to taper you off from opioids. Well, I was on that for 10 years, but it kept the stuff at bay while it's also just eating my stomach up, I guess. The second they gave me ulcer medication, I have felt great, great. So I it wasn't withdrawal. It was just hell. And once I got out of it, after a year, I wanted to be sure, go a year. Nothing, no drinking, no nothing. I was so unhappy. And I'd still had crippling anxiety when I would talk to people. The marijuana has helped me socially in so many ways.
Yeah.
I am so much more able to sit in my emotions and not run to the racetrack or run for pills. In my younger days, go chase girls. I was just doing every time. If I had a bad game, let me go out and chase somebody, get my mind off of that. I can't wait because I played bad tonight. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to hang out. I could shoot around in the morning game tomorrow night, get right back on it, get my life back together with a good game, because then life will be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Being a celebrity as a child, right? Which is basically
crazy.
when you think about, and especially now, it's a lot more commonplace because of social media.
Yeah,
but
this was before the internet.
Yeah, but the idea that like people knew who Rex Chapman was before you set foot on campus at the University of Kentucky. How do you think that contributed to all of these feelings?
I don't know. I think when I was young, I looked up to guys like Daryl and thought, I want to do that. That would be the greatest thing ever. And it is great. If I would have known how hard it would be for me to handle that, aside from the playing, I'd have been like, I don't know if I want that, because it's a lot. It's just a lot.
One of the things we were talking about the other day is like Bronny James.
Yeah.
Having to deal with.
I talked to LeBron just the other night about Bronny. Yeah. Having to deal with it. It was very odd. I say in the book, I had my first girlfriend, Sean Higgs, black girl from Owensboro, the younger sister of a great friend of mine who was a great football player, best football player at UK when I was at UK. But we were very highly discouraged from dating publicly. And that really turned my world upside down because I didn't understand it at all.
Yeah.
At all. She didn't either. We're born after the civil rights stuff. We're aware of it, but it's still, Janet Jackson's the biggest star in the world, and FloJo, and all these beautiful, Pam Grier and Jane Kennedy. And what am I? I'm not supposed to find these girls interesting and attractive. And being told, you don't. I was specifically told at Kentucky.
Told by who?
Well, my coach at the time was Eddie Sutton, and he apparently was being told by higher ups that I couldn't do that publicly. This happened repeatedly. I
That happened
didn't
in the
always
league,
do
right?
it.
Too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. I didn't always do it because I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong, and it caused me to lose trust with my coach. You know, it became harder for him to coach me. I know that because, you know, I knew the game of basketball. I knew when I screwed up, and normally I could fix that. Also, he had to now have 100% strike rate with me. If he got on me and he wasn't right, I'm like, man, f- you.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm also a kid and a teenager and very respectful at that time. And they're telling me this. I figured out very quickly that if I hadn't been as good as I was, they probably wouldn't have wanted me there. But that was also my only avenue to go make money playing anywhere. You know, I'm in college, not making money, but making money. But no, not real money with the contract. I felt like every time they'd call me in and be like, Rex, were you with Sean over at the whatever last night? And I'll be like, yeah. And I'll be like, you got to be careful. I'll be like, the first time they did, I looked around the room like, is this a fucking joke?
Yeah.
But I was a kid, and I would be like, all right. But all my teammates knew it, you know, so right away you're undermining the whole team. What are you telling me?
Right.
What are you telling them?
Them, exactly.
What are you telling Sean?
Yeah.
It's just hard because what was I telling Sean?
What did you?
Well, I'm asking you. What do you think
Yeah,
I was
no,
going
the
to? And
message,
what was the message she was hearing?
Is this is not acceptable, and you are less than.
Yeah.
You are less than.
Right.
Yeah. And so I know what this is about. They feel like they can't have their great white hope dating
a black girl.
Dating a
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So, and it cuts me. It cuts me.
Yeah.
I know if it cuts me,
How does it feel to
how
her?
does it feel to her?
Are you in touch with her?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, she. There's no way I could have written this book
Right,
and
right, right.
included the stuff that I included without her co-signing it. So she knew what would be written about her.
At the time, did you tell her?
Did I tell her what?
At the time,
Yeah.
This is what
I told her every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, we both see. I think there were some pictures that were published recently that we'd had for years, a couple weeks ago, and I think people contacting us after that and saying things, and I think probably both of us wanted those pictures out there for 40 years.
Yeah.
And I know that every time, because everybody at Kentucky knew, everybody your age, our age, knew. They knew, but nobody, the media, nobody would report on it. I kept hoping somebody would publish a picture.
Wow.
So we can talk about how ridiculous this is.
So I can say, they don't, or whatever it was.
Right.
I just didn't feel like I didn't have enough courage.
I
didn't have enough courage.
How old are you? Like that's the
I
thing.
know.
It's like
You also have the weight of all of the state on you.
as a teenager.
yeah.
Like that's the crazy thing. You're talking about it from the lens of a grown man now, right? But the reality is like no kid should have to deal with that.
But some do, and they do.
Yeah.
Like the kid. I'm great friends with Jeff Shepard, who's Reed Shepard's dad, and I've known Reed since and by the way, he's undeniable. I've been saying this for years. But Reed's a very well balanced kid, and they're rooted in their faith, their family. They're just, and I have no worries about him whatsoever. But what he's doing right now is it's it's monumental. There's a lot of pressure on these kids. Some can handle it and some can't. And we've seen everybody, and you know what? It's hard. And in that era, media was so different. Your image. What do you I was listening to that stuff and I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I just felt lost.
Rex, we could talk to you for literally 5 hours. No, there's so much grace in your story. And you say you don't want to be celebrated for failing, but you're being celebrated for how you have faced situations that are pretty universal. So I think you're doing a real service by telling your story, and thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Charlotte, my anxiety twin.
There you go. Text me anytime.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Rex.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Always.
Man.